This Christmas, Evergreen Hills hides a deadly secret. Detective Ryan Mitchell and his partner Olivia Hayes must unravel a shocking murder that shatters the town's festive cheer. Friends turn into suspects, secrets lurk behind every smile, and a cunning mastermind threatens everyone. In Silent Night, Bloody Night, every clue brings danger. Every trust is tested, and the holiday spirit turns into a chilling nightmare. Can Ryan solve the mystery before it's too late? The small town of Evergreen Hills glistened under a blanket of snow. Every street was decorated with twinkling Christmas lights, wreaths hung on doors, and the scent of pine and cinnamon filled the crisp winter air. Families laughed and children played, unaware that this Christmas would not be like any other. Ryan Mitchell, a dedicated detective in his early 30s, walked briskly down Main Street. His sharp eyes observed everything, small details most people ignored. He wasn't here for the festivities. He had a quiet suspicion that something felt off. The town seemed too perfect, too cheerful. Ryan paused near the town square, where a massive Christmas tree stood, lights sparkling against the night sky. People gathered around, singing carols, sipping hot cocoa, and exchanging gifts. Among them, Ryan noticed Olivia Hayes, his partner, chatting with a group of officers assigned to holiday patrol. Olivia's brown hair was tucked neatly under her scarf, her eyes scanning the crowd with that same alertness that Ryan trusted implicitly. "Everything looks normal," she said, when Ryan approached. Her tone was calm, but Ryan sensed the tension beneath it. "Too normal," Ryan replied, glancing around. "I can feel it, Olivia. Something's coming." Before she could respond, a scream pierced the air, slicing through the festive atmosphere. People froze. Children clutched their parents, and a chilling silence fell over the square. Ryan and Olivia ran toward the source. Near the edge of the square, a small crowd had gathered. In the snow lay a man, motionless, blood slowly staining the white ground. Panic and confusion rippled through the townspeople. Ryan pushed through the crowd. He recognized the victim immediately, Nathan Brooks, a local man known for his friendly demeanor and involvement in the town's holiday events. His eyes were wide open, frozen in shock, and his hands clawed at the snow as if trying to hold on. Olivia knelt beside Nathan, checking for a pulse. "He's gone," she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. The Christmas Eve celebration was over. Laughter had turned into whispers, joy replaced by fear. Ryan stood up, determination hardening in his gaze. "No one leaves. Not until we find out who did this." The first snowflakes of the evening fell gently on the bloodied scene. Evergreen Hills, a town that had always felt safe, would never be the same again. The sun rose over Evergreen Hills, casting a soft pink glow on the snow-covered town. But the morning's beauty could not mask the horror that had unfolded the night before. News of Nathan Brooks' murder spread quickly, and the town was gripped by shock and disbelief. Families who had gathered for breakfast spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting nervously toward the streets, unsure of who might be involved. Ryan Mitchell arrived at the crime scene just after dawn. Yellow police tape cordoned off the square, still glinting under the pale winter sun. Officers were taking statements, and curious townspeople lingered at the edges, their breaths visible in the cold air. Ryan's eyes swept the area carefully, noting every detail from the position of the body to the footprints in the snow. "Morning, Ryan," Detective Samuel Grant greeted, his voice calm but lined with concern. "It's worse than we thought." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "Tell me everything we know so far." Grant handed him a small notebook. "Victim is Nathan Brooks, early 30s, found near the square just after midnight. No signs of a struggle on the surrounding streets. Cause of death, sharp force trauma to the chest. No weapon recovered yet. Witnesses are confused. Everyone says they didn't see anyone suspicious." Ryan's mind raced. A Christmas Eve murder in a town this small? It had to be someone local. Someone who knew the routines, the quiet spots, and the people. Olivia Hayes arrived, her breath misting in the cold. "I've spoken to a few witnesses," she said. "Most people were inside, celebrating. Only a handful saw Nathan outside. One person mentioned a shadow moving near the tree right before the scream, but no one got a clear look." Ryan frowned. "A shadow doesn't leave a name, Olivia, but it's a start." The detectives moved through the square, observing the scene carefully. Nathan's coat had been torn slightly at the shoulder, as if he had tried to defend himself. Blood glistened in the morning sun, stark against the white snow, a cruel contrast to the festive decorations that still hung from every lamppost. Suddenly, Ryan noticed a figure at the edge of the crowd, a young woman shivering in her scarf, clutching a small purse. Her eyes were wide, terrified. Sophie Carter, a town local and a witness from the night before, had seen something. Ryan gestured for her to come closer. "What did you see?" he asked, gently, crouching to her level. Sophie hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. I saw someone near the tree. They ran when Nathan screamed. I didn't see their face, but..." Ryan's heart pounded. Every clue mattered. Every observation could lead to the killer. Olivia placed a reassuring hand on Sophie's shoulder. "You did the right thing by telling us," she said softly. Ryan stood and surveyed the square again. The peaceful town decorated for Christmas was now a place of fear. And this was only the beginning. Whoever had killed Nathan Brooks had sent a clear message. No one was safe. Not on Christmas Eve, not anywhere in Evergreen Hills. Ryan's resolve hardened. "We catch this person," he muttered under his breath, "before they strike again." Snow continued to fall lightly, the flakes drifting silently over the crime scene, as if hiding the town's new bloody reality beneath a serene white blanket. The snow still lay thick over Evergreen Hills, glimmering in the pale morning light. What had been a picturesque Christmas town was now cloaked in tension. Every footstep seemed louder, every shadow suspicious. Detective Ryan Mitchell adjusted his coat and surveyed the square where Nathan Brooks had been found. The yellow police tape fluttered gently in the breeze, a stark contrast to the festive decorations around the square. Ryan crouched near the patch of disturbed snow where Nathan had fallen. Carefully, he traced the impressions with his gloved hands. Footprints led away from the square, partially obscured by fresh snow, but distinct enough for a trained eye to analyze. "Someone ran fast," he muttered to Olivia Hayes, who was beside him. They knew exactly where they were going. Olivia nodded, scanning the area. No one should have been outside alone at that hour, except Nathan. Whoever did this planned it. Ryan rose, eyes narrowing. Exactly. This isn't random, it's personal. And whoever left these footprints knew the square, the crowd, even the timing. They followed the trail of footprints cautiously, careful not to disturb them further. The prints led toward a quieter side street, partially hidden by the snow-laden branches of pine trees. Ryan stopped. This person wanted to disappear quickly. They weren't reckless, but they left traces we can track. Olivia pointed to a faint glint partially buried in the snow near the curb. Ryan bent down and carefully retrieved it, a small metal charm, engraved with a symbol he didn't immediately recognize. "This doesn't belong here," Ryan said, turning it over in his hands. Either the killer dropped it or Nathan grabbed it during the attack. Either way, it's important. They photographed the charm and placed it in an evidence bag. Ryan's mind raced. The charm could be personal, a warning, or a calling card. He would need to check it against local records, stores, and social media later. Sophie Carter, the only clear witness from the square, waited nearby, wrapped tightly in her scarf. Her hands shook slightly as she recounted what she had seen. I saw Nathan near the Christmas tree. He seemed tense, like he was waiting for someone.
And then I saw a shadow. They moved behind the tree, and then Nathan screamed. I didn't see their face. They ran fast, and the snow muffled their steps. Ryan knelt beside her. Anything else, even something small, could help us. She shook her head. No, just that they ran quickly. That's all I remember. Ryan exchanged a glance with Olivia. The footprints match her story. Someone approached Nathan deliberately. Not random, not accidental. Olivia nodded, and the charm, whoever left it, either wanted Nathan to see it or didn't notice it dropped. Either way, it's a lead. Ryan's mind worked quickly. They needed to trace the charm, map the footprints, and cross-check everyone who might have had access to the square during the night. The killer had planned this carefully. Whoever it was, they were precise and confident. Ryan and Olivia moved through the square slowly, noting everything: the positioning of the decorations, the footprints, even the partially trampled snow around the tree. Every detail mattered. Ryan paused near the Christmas tree, studying the area where Nathan had fallen. He noticed slight scuff marks in the snow, as if Nathan had tried to defend himself. Look at this, he said, pointing to the marks. He fought back. Whoever did this expected him to be alone, but Nathan resisted. Olivia crouched, examining the scuffs, determined and possibly familiar with him. Someone Nathan might have trusted, at least enough to not suspect immediate danger. Ryan nodded. This wasn't a spontaneous act. The killer waited, planned, and executed, and they left the charm. That means they wanted a message to be sent. By mid-morning, a few townspeople had cautiously emerged, whispering among themselves. Ryan and Olivia observed them silently. In a town this small, patterns emerged quickly. Neighbors noticed things others didn't. Children, families, shopkeepers, all eyes seemed alert, watching each other cautiously. The detectives made mental notes of anyone acting suspiciously, anyone too calm, anyone too nervous. Ryan said quietly, in a town this size, someone knows something. Someone saw something. We just need to find them. Olivia agreed. And we need to do it before the snow covers everything. Every hour matters. As afternoon approached, Ryan and Olivia took one last sweep of the square. The town was eerily quiet, snow continuing to fall gently, blanketing everything in deceptive calm. Ryan looked around at the festive decorations, now feeling almost grotesque against the backdrop of death. This town isn't going to feel safe until we find the person who did this, he said quietly. Olivia placed a hand on his shoulder. And we will. One clue at a time. The first snowflakes of the evening began to drift again, heavier now, covering the footprints and partially obscuring the tree. Ryan knew they had only a limited window to piece together the killer's movements. Evergreen Hills had changed. The Christmas cheer was gone, replaced with suspicion, fear, and the sense that someone very dangerous was still watching.
The snow continued to fall over Evergreen Hills, blanketing the town in silence. But inside the small houses and shops, whispers spread like wildfire. The murder of Nathan Brooks had left a mark that no festive decoration could hide. Families gathered around breakfast tables, but the usual warmth of Christmas was gone. Conversations were hushed, eyes darted nervously, and every passerby seemed suspect. Ryan Mitchell and Olivia Hayes moved through the town carefully, aware that every resident might hold a piece of the puzzle. As they walked down Pine Street, Ryan's mind raced through the details they had so far. Footprints in the snow, a small metal charm, and Sophie's account were all the tangible clues, but the killer's motives remained hidden. He knew that in a town this small, secrets often ran deeper than anyone suspected.
Olivia fell into step beside him, her eyes scanning every passerby. "People are scared," she said quietly, "and scared people sometimes hide things." They stopped at the edge of the town square, where the decorations still hung in cheerful contrast to the grim reality. A group of townspeople had gathered, speaking in low voices. Ryan and Olivia observed from a distance. Snippets of conversation reached them. "Did you see Nathan arguing with someone last week? I heard there was tension between him and Victoria Kane." "I don't trust Lucas Reed, especially after the council meeting." Ryan made mental notes. Every whispered accusation, every pointed glance could be important. In Evergreen Hills, where everyone thought they knew everyone else, hidden resentments and rivalries could easily turn deadly. "This town is full of secrets," he murmured, "and now those secrets are coming to the surface." Olivia nodded. "We need to talk to everyone Nathan was close to. Friends, colleagues, anyone who might have had a reason to want him gone." They decided to start with Nathan's closest friend, Emily Saunders, who had been helping him organize the town's Christmas festivities. Emily greeted her at her small shop, her hands trembling slightly as she offered them hot coffee. "I still can't believe it. Nathan, he didn't deserve this. Not here, not now." Ryan nodded. "We're doing everything we can to understand what happened. Did Nathan seem worried recently? Any arguments or unusual encounters?" Emily hesitated, wringing her hands. "Well, he did mention that someone had been making him uneasy. I didn't think much of it at the time. He said it was probably nothing, but now I wonder." Olivia leaned in. "Did he name anyone?" Emily shook her head. "No, but he did say he felt like someone was watching him in the square during the evening events. He laughed it off, said I was being paranoid. I wish I had taken it more seriously." Ryan exchanged a look with Olivia. "It's a start. Do you know anyone who might have held a grudge against Nathan? Even small disagreements can matter." Emily thought for a moment. Lucas Reed had been pushing Nathan about the town council finances. And then there's Victoria Kane. She's always so controlling, especially around town events. Nathan wasn't a fan of hers. Ryan nodded. "We'll need to follow up on those leads, but thank you for your honesty. It helps." As they left Emily's shop, Ryan noticed the way townspeople watched them from windows and doorways. Suspicion hung in the air like the snow itself, thick and chilling. He could feel the weight of the town's unspoken fears pressing down on him. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had motives. And somewhere in this town, the killer was waiting, watching, maybe even planning their next move. Ryan and Olivia continued their walk through Evergreen Hills, noting interactions and subtle gestures. A man passed them by quickly, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to be followed. A woman standing near a bakery whispered urgently to another, their eyes flicking nervously toward the square. Each observation fed into Ryan's growing understanding of the town's underlying tensions. By late afternoon, the town seemed quieter, but the unease had only deepened. Ryan and Olivia returned to the square to examine the footprints once more, now partially obscured by fresh snow. Ryan knelt, brushing lightly at the surface, trying to trace the path again. Each mark told a story, each disturbance a hint of movement or struggle. The charm they had found earlier lay carefully in evidence packaging, a small but significant piece of the puzzle. Olivia watched him. The killer is smart. They're familiar with the town, the timing, and probably with Nathan himself. Whoever did this knows how to manipulate people, and they've already started sowing distrust. Ryan nodded grimly. "Exactly. And every rumor, every glance, every whispered conversation might lead us to them. We just need to connect the dots before it's too late." As evening fell, the town was bathed in the soft glow of Christmas lights, but the festive cheer was gone. Evergreen Hills had become a town on edge, its residents wary and suspicious. Ryan and Olivia moved carefully through the streets, determined to follow every clue, track every lead, and uncover the secrets that had led to Nathan's death. The snow continued to fall, heavier now, muffling the sounds of the town, but doing nothing to hide the tension that had settled over it. Evergreen Hills was no longer the peaceful, cheerful town it had seemed to be. It had changed, forever marked by fear, suspicion, and the dark truth that someone close to Nathan had committed a terrible act. Ryan stared at the falling snow, his mind racing through possibilities. Every resident was a potential witness, every interaction a potential clue, and every hidden relationship a possible motive. The investigation was only beginning, and he knew the killer was still out there, moving silently among them. The first hints of night began to darken the streets, shadows stretching long over the snow-covered town. Ryan and Olivia knew that the next hours would be critical. The killer's next move could come at any moment, and Evergreen Hills had already learned that even a small, quiet town could hide the most dangerous secrets.
The snow had begun to melt slightly under the weak winter sun, but the chill in Evergreen Hills was still sharp, biting through layers of coats and scarves. Ryan Mitchell walked briskly beside Olivia Hayes as they made their way toward Nathan Brooks' apartment again. The quiet streets seemed emptier than usual, each shuttered window and closed door adding to the growing sense of unease. The town had gone from festive cheer to a tense silence, and Ryan could feel it pressing in from all sides. Inside Nathan's small apartment, the air still smelled faintly of pine and old coffee. Ryan moved to the table where the open laptop had been left untouched since the morning, and Olivia picked up the scattered papers Nathan had been working on for the town's Christmas events. Among the notes and schedules, Ryan noticed something odd, a series of letters tucked under the edge of a planner. They were unsigned, brief, and slightly threatening. "Look at this," Ryan said quietly, handing one of the letters to Olivia. The words were simple, but the message chilling. "Stop interfering or you'll regret it." Olivia frowned. Interfering with what? The town projects? The Christmas events? Ryan shook his head slowly. Maybe both. Nathan was well liked, but he wasn't naive. Someone must have felt threatened by him, enough to warn him or threaten him. He picked up another letter, similar in tone, but this one mentioned specific events, names, and dates. This isn't random. Someone watched him, knew his schedule, and left these to unsettle him. The tension in the town didn't start last night. It's been building, and Nathan was right in the middle of it. Olivia examined the papers. He didn't tell anyone about this? Ryan shook his head. Apparently not. If he had, maybe he would have mentioned it to Emily Saunders or Sophie Carter, but he seemed to handle it alone. Ryan's thoughts shifted to the town itself. Evergreen Hills had always appeared calm, cheerful, and tight-knit, but beneath that surface were tensions most outsiders would never see. Rivalries, grudges, and secret arguments simmered quietly, and Nathan, with his involvement in town events, had probably stirred more than one simmering resentment. Olivia noticed a photo pinned to the wall, partially hidden behind the planner. It showed Nathan standing with a group of town officials, including Lucas Reed and Victoria Kane, all smiling for the camera. Ryan leaned closer. "There's history here," he said. "These weren't casual acquaintances. There's politics, power, and influence tangled up with Nathan's life." He picked up the photo, examining it carefully. Lucas Reed seems protective, but that doesn't mean harmless. And Victoria Kane, she always has a hidden agenda. Nathan may have crossed her without realizing the consequences. Olivia's brow furrowed. "Do you think someone from this circle could have escalated things to murder?" Ryan nodded slowly. "It's possible." And the letters suggest someone wanted Nathan scared before they acted. Someone who knew his patterns, his contacts, his vulnerabilities. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was calculated. They sifted through the rest of Nathan's belongings, uncovering old emails, notes, and messages that hinted at small disputes and disagreements with other townspeople. Some were trivial arguments over decorations, schedules, or roles in the Christmas events. Others were sharper, more personal. Warnings Nathan had received about pushing too far, stepping on toes, or confronting powerful individuals in the town. Ryan paused and stared at a particular email. It referenced a heated disagreement between Nathan and Victoria Kane, mentioning a secret initiative Nathan had been planning to expose. "This could be big," he said, showing it to Olivia. She'd gazed. So he was targeted because he knew too much? Ryan nodded grimly. It's starting to look that way. Whoever killed him wasn't just eliminating a person, they were silencing someone who threatened their control or secrets. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. Outside, the snow continued to fall lightly, covering footprints and muffling distant sounds. The town seemed calm from the outside, but Ryan knew better. Beneath that calm, secrets, hidden conflicts, and people willing to go to extreme lengths to protect them. Ryan turned to Olivia. "We need to map these interactions. Every argument, every warning, every subtle conflict Nathan had could point us to the killer. And we need to do it quickly, before someone else gets hurt." Olivia nodded, already pulling out a notebook to list all the names and connections she could find. This town is a maze of relationships and grudges, and Nathan was in the center of it all. Ryan looked out the window at the snow falling over the streets of Evergreen Hills. He could see families moving cautiously, neighbors watching one another, and the faint glow of Christmas lights flickering in the cold evening. The town seemed peaceful, but it was an illusion. Beneath that calm, tensions had built over years, and now they had erupted into violence. Ryan closed the planner, carefully stacking the letters and notes. "Tomorrow, we start reaching out to people connected to Nathan, friends, colleagues, anyone who might have felt threatened or angry. Someone knows more than they're saying." Olivia nodded, her expression serious. "And we'll find out, one piece at a time." The evening grew darker, and the first stars appeared in the clear sky. The town, blanketed in snow, looked serene, but Ryan knew that danger was still present. Secrets, grudges, and hidden conflicts could turn deadly at any moment. Nathan's past had caught up with him, and the killer had left a trail carefully designed to confuse and intimidate. Ryan stood, staring at the quiet town. Evergreen Hills may look peaceful now, but it's only the beginning. The deeper we dig, the more we'll uncover, and someone in this town knows exactly what happened. Olivia placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we keep digging. We don't stop until the truth comes out." The snow continued to fall, silent and thick, covering the streets and muffling distant sounds. But Ryan and Olivia knew that beneath the soft blanket of white, the town's dark secrets were waiting to be uncovered. Evergreen Hills would never be the same again, and the investigation into Nathan's death was only just beginning. The next morning, Evergreen Hills felt eerily still. The snowfall from the night had coated everything in a thick, untouched white layer. Even the familiar streets looked washed out, as if the town itself wished to hide the traces of what had happened. Ryan Mitchell stepped out of his car, pulling his coat tighter around him. Olivia Hayes followed closely, her breath visible in the icy air. Today was going to be crucial. Today, they would face the woman whose name kept surfacing in whispers, Victoria Kane. Victoria was not just any town resident. She carried influence in Evergreen Hills like a quiet weapon, one she rarely needed to draw openly. She was wealthy, respected publicly, and feared privately. People spoke of her with polite admiration, but their eyes always revealed something else: caution. Nathan Brooks had crossed paths with her more than once, and every trace they had uncovered so far hinted that their relationship had been complicated, tense, and possibly dangerous. Ryan and Olivia approached her modern glass-paneled home at the edge of town. It stood out sharply among the traditional cottages and cozy houses, resembling more of a city estate than a small-town residence. The walkway had already been cleared of snow, almost too neatly. Someone inside wasn't sleeping through the chaos gripping Evergreen Hills. Someone was awake, aware, and prepared. Before Ryan could knock, the door opened slowly.
revealing Victoria Kane herself. She stood tall, perfectly posed, her dark coat wrapped elegantly around her shoulders. Her expression was calm, too calm for someone living in a town shaken by murder. "Detective Mitchell," she said smoothly, addressing him by name before he could introduce himself. "And Detective Hayes, I assumed you're here about Nathan." Ryan exchanged a glance with Olivia. "We'd like to ask a few questions." Victoria stepped aside, allowing them into her immaculate living room. Everything was precise, arranged with an almost obsessive sense of order. The fireplace crackled gently, and the large window offered a clear view of the snowy town below. Victoria waited gracefully until they sat before taking her own seat. "Your relationship with Nathan Brooks," Ryan began, watching her carefully. "We've learned the two of you had disagreements, heated ones." Victoria smiled faintly, eyes sharp. "Nathan was ambitious. Idealistic. That's not a crime, is it? He simply had strong opinions about how the town should be run. We disagreed. That happens." Olivia leaned forward slightly. "People say those disagreements weren't minor, that you felt he interfered with things you were managing." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered quickly, almost invisibly. "People say many things in this town. Rumors spread faster than snowfall." Ryan removed one of Nathan's threatening letters from his pocket. "We found these in Nathan's belongings. Do you recognize them?" Victoria took the paper delicately, reading it as though examining a document of no personal significance. "Threats. Vague. Anonymous. And you believe I had something to do with this?" she asked, raising an eyebrow calmly. "We're considering all possibilities." "And you absolutely should, but you must also consider that Nathan's involvement in town affairs made him visible. Too visible. Not everyone appreciated his energy." Her voice was smooth, controlled, almost rehearsed. "He wanted changes. Changes some people felt threatened by." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "And you? Did his ideas threaten you?" Victoria looked directly at him, unflinching. "Detective, I have been part of this town's leadership for years. I have seen people come and go with bright ideas. Nathan was no different." Her calm bothered Ryan. It wasn't natural, at least not for someone being questioned about a murder connected so closely to them. It was controlled, crafted, polished. "We also know," Olivia said softly, "that you met with Nathan privately last week, late in the evening." For the first time, a hint of tension touched Victoria's jaw. "He wanted to discuss his proposal for the Christmas events. He insisted on speaking urgently." "And did he mention feeling threatened?" Ryan pressed. "No," she said after a precise pause. "But he seemed conflicted, as if he was carrying more than he wanted to say." Ryan watched her closely. "Victoria, did Nathan have something on you, something you didn't want exposed?" The silence that followed was thick, heavy, stretching across the room. Victoria's eyes turned cold, distant. "You're asking dangerous questions, Detective. Nathan was a good man, but he involved himself where he shouldn't have. Had he stayed within his role, perhaps things would have been different." "Different?" Ryan echoed quietly. Victoria didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood and walked to the window, looking out over the snow-covered town. Her posture was still perfect, but there was something rigid about her shoulders now, something tightened. Evergreen Hills thrives on balance, a balance people like Nathan tried to disrupt. Ryan stood too, slowly. Balance can be a pretty word for control. Victoria's reflection in the window gave nothing away. Detective Mitchell, if you want the truth about what happened to Nathan, you should ask those who feared him. I respected him. That's all. Ryan didn't believe her, at least not entirely, but there was no crack in her composure to exploit. Not yet. As they stepped outside again, Olivia exhaled deeply. She's hiding something. Ryan nodded. She's hiding a lot. But she's too smart to slip this early. We need evidence, something real that ties her to Nathan's fear. They began walking toward the car, but Ryan paused when something caught his attention. Footprints. Fresh ones, leading around the side of Victoria's house. Olivia saw them too. Someone else was here, she whispered. They followed the tracks carefully until they reached the back of the property. The footprints ended near a small shed. Ryan slowly opened the door, and inside they found a partially melted set of boot prints on the concrete floor and a faint smell of something metallic. Ryan's heart thudded. It was the same smell he had noticed in the town square the night of Nathan's murder. Someone had been here. Someone connected to Victoria. And whoever it was, they were careful. Very careful. Ryan, Olivia said quietly, this isn't coincidence. Someone close to Victoria is involved. Ryan closed the shed door slowly. No, he said softly. Victoria is involved. We just haven't found how. As they walked back to their car, Ryan's mind raced with every silent detail, every subtle reaction Victoria had shown. She wasn't innocent. Not entirely. Whether she ordered something, covered something, or knew something, she was intertwined in this tragedy. But the killer was still somewhere out there, watching, waiting. And if Victoria Kane had anything to hide, Ryan suspected the killer was hiding much, much more. The snow fell again, soft and deceptive, covering tracks, masking secrets, and reminding Ryan of a single chilling truth. Evergreen Hills was far more dangerous than it appeared, and the deeper they went, the darker it became.
Detective Aurora Hale arrived at the Riverside Apartments just after sunset, the sky burning orange behind the tall buildings. The place was quiet, too quiet for a complex that usually buzzed with life. She walked inside, her steps echoing through the corridor as she approached apartment 309, the home of an unexpected witness who had asked to speak in private. Inside, an elderly man named Mr. Caldwell stood nervously by the window, his trembling hands gripping a cup of tea he hadn't touched. He glanced at Aurora with fearful eyes, as though every shadow in the room frightened him. "You said you saw something the night Elena disappeared?" Aurora said softly, not wanting to intimidate him. The man swallowed hard. I didn't want to get involved. I thought it was nothing, but after hearing she was missing, I couldn't sleep." Aurora pulled out her notebook. "Take your time. Start from the beginning." Mr. Caldwell took a shaky breath. "The night Elena vanished, I saw her leaving the building. She wasn't alone." Aurora's heartbeat quickened. "Who was with her?" "A man," he whispered. "Tall, wearing a dark jacket. I couldn't see his face clearly. They were arguing. She kept saying, 'I don't trust you anymore.' He tried to calm her, but she pushed him away." Aurora leaned forward. "What happened next?" "He walked toward the main road. He followed behind her. I thought it was just a couple fighting. People argue all the time. But then..." He stopped, eyes widening as the memory shook him. "Then what?" Aurora asked gently. "I heard a car door slam, and then..." Silence. When I looked again, they were both gone. Aurora felt a cold wave rush through her. "Did you recognize the man at all? Anyone who lives here? Anyone who has visited before?" Mr. Caldwell shook his head. "No, but..." He hesitated. "But what?" "The car.
It wasn't parked there earlier. A black USV. No plates on the front. I remember because it stood out. Aurora wrote quickly. A black USV with no front plate. That wasn't a random detail. It was deliberate. Why didn't you tell the police earlier? I was scared. That man, he gave off a strange feeling, like he'd do anything to stop someone from interfering. Aurora stood, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing by telling me now, and I promise you won't be in danger, but I need you to stay available in case I need more information. Mr. Caldwell nodded, relief washing over his face. As Aurora left the apartment, her mind raced. Lucas had no black USV. Owen didn't either. Neither did the neighbors she had spoken to. So who was this mysterious man Elena didn't trust anymore? Aurora walked into the night, her instincts burning with a new certainty. Someone else had been involved from the start. Someone hiding in the shadows. And now she finally had the first real clue leading directly to him.
Detective Aurora Hale sat in her office long after everyone else had left the precinct. The soft hum of the desk lamp was the only sound in the room. Her mind replayed Mr. Caldwell's words again and again. A tall man, a dark jacket, a black SUV with no plate. Someone Elena didn't trust anymore. Aurora opened Elena's phone data once again, scrolling through the messages she had already read 100 times. But tonight, one message stood out, one she had dismissed earlier because it looked incomplete. A message sent from an unknown number 2 days before Elena vanished. We need to talk. You can't run from the truth forever. At first glance, it seemed like simple drama, but the phrasing felt wrong, too threatening, too final. Aurora tapped on the number and tried tracing it again. This time, she noticed something she hadn't before. The number wasn't registered to any carrier. It belonged to a temporary encrypted phone, one that could be purchased anonymously and disposed of just as easily. That meant planning, intent. Aurora's heart tightened. She clicked on Elena's deleted notes folder next. There had been nothing important in it so far. Shopping lists, reminders, drafts. But then she saw a file she swore wasn't there before. The timestamp showed that it had been modified the same night Elena disappeared. Aurora opened it. Inside was a single sentence. If something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Aurora froze. Elena knew. She knew someone was after her. She knew she was in danger. And she left a message behind. Aurora leaned back, mind racing. Who did Elena fear enough to write something like this? Lucas? He was jealous but not calculating. Owen? Emotional, unpredictable, but not cunning enough to hide an SUV and use a burner phone. This was someone else entirely. Someone organized. Someone who had been watching her. Aurora grabbed her jacket and left the office, heading toward Elena's apartment for the 100th time. But this time, she wasn't looking for obvious clues. She was searching for things out of place. When she entered the apartment, she switched on the flashlight and walked slowly, letting her instincts guide her. Nothing unusual in the living room, nothing new in the bedroom. Then she stepped into the small study. Her eyes moved across the shelves, the desk, the window. And then she saw it. On the floor, near the desk leg, hidden under a stack of old magazines, was a torn piece of notebook paper. Aurora crouched and pulled it free. The edge was ripped unevenly, as though it had been torn out in a hurry. There was handwriting on it, Elena's. Only 4 words. He found me again. Aurora's breath caught. Again. This wasn't a new threat. Someone from Elena's past had returned. Someone she thought she escaped.
someone dangerous enough that she didn't even dare to write his name. Aurora stood slowly, staring at the note. The case had just changed completely. This wasn't about love triangles or jealous arguments anymore. This was something darker. Something that had followed Elena into the shadows of her new life. And Aurora now realized the truth. The man in the dark jacket wasn't just involved in Elena's disappearance. He had been hunting her long before that night.
Aurora Hale stared at the ripped note for a long moment, its 4 words echoing through her thoughts like an alarm she could no longer ignore. He found me again. Elena had known this man, feared him, before any of the other suspects ever entered her life. This wasn't random, and it wasn't new. It was history resurfacing, stalking her until it finally closed in. Aurora slipped the note carefully into an evidence sleeve, then scanned the study again. She looked for gaps on the bookshelves, spaces where something might have been removed, scratches on the floorboards, or signs that someone had entered after Elena vanished. Everything looked deceptively normal. Too normal. Whoever had been here knew how to move without leaving traces. Her flashlight paused on the window. It was locked, but the outside sill had faint marks, just enough to catch the light. She leaned closer. They were smudges, almost like fingerprints wiped in a hurry, faint and blurred. Someone had stood here, watching inside, watching Elena. Aurora stepped back, goosebumps crawling up her arms. She left the apartment and headed to her car, dialing Ryan Mitchell as she slid into the driver's seat. He picked up quickly. "What's going on?" he asked. "I found a note Elena hid. She was afraid of someone from her past," Aurora said, starting the engine. "And I think he was watching her, maybe for weeks." Ryan fell silent on the other end. "Do you think the man Mr. Caldwell saw is the same one?" "I'm sure of it. I'll meet you at the station." Aurora hung up and drove through the quiet streets, her headlights cutting through the December fog. The cold air outside carried the heaviness of a town hiding too many secrets. Shadows stretched across buildings and sidewalks, making everything feel darker than it should. At the precinct, Ryan was already waiting for her. Aurora handed him the evidence sleeve. He read the note and exhaled slowly. "This changes everything." "I know." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "If this man has history with Elena, there has to be something. Records, incidents, anything. We checked her file, clean. But what if she changed her name?" Ryan's eyes shot up. "You think Elena Carter isn't Elena Carter?" Aurora nodded. If she was running from someone dangerous, she might have started over. Ryan walked toward his desk and pulled up national databases, name changes, aliases, relocation logs, anything that could hint at who Elena really was. Aurora paced behind him, the tension in her chest tightening. Minutes passed like hours. Then, Ryan stopped scrolling. "Aurora, you need to see this." Aurora leaned over his shoulder. There it was. A photograph of a woman who looked younger, hair shorter, eyes the same unmistakable green. The name beside it read, Elena Dawson. Her file wasn't clean. 5 years earlier, she had filed a restraining order against a man named Marcus Hale, a name Aurora had never heard connected to the case. The reason for the order? Stalking, harassment, attempted break-in, threats. Aurora's stomach twisted. Why didn't this show up before? Ryan clicked deeper. Because she removed the complaint a year later, the entire case was sealed, probably under pressure or fear. Aurora stared at the screen. If Elena had gone so far as to change her identity, that man had shattered her life once before, and he had come back. Ryan leaned back in his chair. "We need to find Marcus Hale." Aurora nodded, and fast. But something bothered her. A name like that. Marcus Hale. Aurora's eyes narrowed. "Hale," Ryan repeated. "Aurora, that's your last name." Aurora felt a chill run through her. Her hands tightened at her sides. "It's a coincidence," she said quickly, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her. Ryan watched her. "Are you sure?" Aurora didn't answer right away.
Her mind raced. She didn't know a Marcus Hale. She had no relatives with that name, but the coincidence gnawed at her anyway, unsettling and sharp. We focus on finding him. That's all that matters. Ryan nodded reluctantly, though he kept watching her with quiet concern. Aurora turned toward the hallway. She needed air. She needed space to think. But before she reached the door, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her heart skipped. She opened it slowly. "Stop digging. You're next." Aurora froze. The world around her went silent. Her hands were cold, her breath slow, her mind suddenly sharp and alert. Ryan stepped beside her. "Aurora, what is it?" She turned the screen toward him. His eyes widened. The same kind of number Elena received messages from. Burner. Untraceable. Ryan's jaw clenched. He's not just after Elena anymore. Aurora stared at the screen, her heartbeats thundering in her ears. The man in the shadows had finally stepped into the light. And now, he was coming for her.
Aurora Hale stared at the message on her phone until the words seemed to burn themselves into her vision. "Stop digging. You're next." It felt unreal, as if the threat had materialized out of the air and wrapped itself around her throat. The burner phone number had no identity, no trace, no clue, only a warning that came too late. Whoever had taken Elena was now watching Aurora. He knew she was getting closer. He knew she wasn't backing down. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Aurora, listen to me. You can't chase this alone anymore. He's targeting you." "I'm aware," she said softly, slipping her phone into her pocket. Her tone was calm, but inside, her nerves were drawn tight like wire. "But I'm not stepping away, not when we're finally cracking the truth." Ryan watched her carefully. "Then we need backup, protection, surveillance. I don't want the whole precinct alerted. If he's watching, any sudden move will spook him, and if he gets scared, he'll vanish, just like before." Ryan sighed. "Then what's the plan?" Aurora didn't answer immediately. She walked toward the evidence wall pinned with photos, timelines, fragments of clues that had begun to form a shape. Elena's last weeks, her fears, the man in the dark jacket, the SUV with no plates, the hidden notes. The shape wasn't complete yet, but it was recognizable. Someone obsessively tracking Elena, someone who had waited for the perfect moment. Aurora spoke quietly. "We find Marcus Hale. He's the link to everything." Ryan nodded, reluctantly agreeing. "Then we start with the sealed file. Someone had access to it. Someone approved the request." Aurora grabbed her coat. "The courthouse archives. They open early." The drive through the foggy morning was silent, each lost in their thoughts. The winter sky was pale, heavy with cold light. When they reached the courthouse, the building stood like a stone giant, quiet and almost abandoned at this early hour. Inside, the corridors were still, the air carrying the faint smell of old paper and polished floors. They reached the records division where an elderly clerk greeted them with wary curiosity. "You're here early," he muttered, adjusting his glasses. "We need access to sealed case 47B Dawson. Emergency basis." The clerk frowned. "Sealed cases require supervisor approval." Aurora leaned forward slightly, her voice low but firm. "It's linked to an ongoing missing persons investigation. Time sensitive." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Give me a minute." He disappeared into the back office. Aurora's gaze followed him until he was out of sight. Something about his expression bothered her, almost too nervous, too cautious. Ryan must have noticed too. "You think he knows something?" Ryan whispered. "He knows something," Aurora said quietly. Minutes passed. The clerk finally returned with a thin folder, but he held it as if it were a ticking device. "Here. This is all that remains of the case. Most of it was removed when the sealing order was signed." Aurora took the folder. It felt weightless, far too light for what they needed. She opened it with careful fingers. Just 3 documents remained: the restraining order request, a withdrawal statement, a security incident report.
But something was wrong. The signature on the withdrawal form was not Elena's handwriting. Ryan leaned over her shoulder. "Forged," he whispered. "Someone forced the withdrawal." Aurora turned to the clerk. "Who sealed this case?" The man shifted uncomfortably. I can't say." Aurora stepped forward. "Someone's life is at stake. Tell me who approved it." His shoulders slumped. "A man came in 5 years ago. He had identification, court authorization, everything. The papers looked legitimate. He said the case was closed and needed to be sealed for privacy." "What was his name?" Aurora demanded. The clerk swallowed hard. "Marcus Hale." Aurora's breath stopped. Ryan straightened sharply. He sealed his own case? Aurora's heartbeat pounded. Marcus had planned everything, covering his tracks, hiding his past, burying the evidence before Elena even escaped him. And now, years later, he had found her again, just as the note said. Aurora closed the folder and turned to leave, but as she did, the clerk called out softly, "There's something else. I shouldn't say this, but the man, he asked about police procedures, about how detectives track people, about who handles missing persons cases." Aurora froze. "He asked about you," the clerk whispered. Ryan looked at Aurora, fear creeping into her expression. "Aurora, he's been planning this for years. He knew you'd eventually take this case." Aurora walked out of the office with her chest tight, the cold courthouse air suddenly feeling suffocating. Marcus Hale wasn't just stalking Elena. He'd studied Aurora, watched her, learned about her, prepared for her. When she reached the hallway, her phone buzzed again. Aurora stopped walking. Slowly, she lifted the phone and stared at the new message from the same unknown number. A single photograph. Her car. Taken just minutes ago. Aurora turned around sharply, scanning the hallway, the windows, the entrance. Any sign of movement, any shadow, anyone watching. There was nothing. But someone had been close enough to take a picture, close enough to send a message. Ryan stepped beside her. "Aurora, we need to leave. Now." Aurora's voice was barely above a whisper. "He's not just ahead of us anymore. He's everywhere."
Aurora Hale sat in the passenger seat of Ryan's car, her breathing shallow as the engine hummed through the courthouse parking lot. The photograph of her own car still burned in her mind, too fresh, too real, proof that Marcus Hale had been close enough to touch her world. She felt him everywhere now, like a shadow that slipped between cracks, always watching, always calculating the next move. Ryan kept glancing in the rearview mirror. "No one's following us," he said quietly. Aurora didn't respond. She didn't trust the calm. She didn't trust the silence. If Marcus had been outside the courthouse, he wasn't making mistakes. He was sending messages. The city slid past the windows in streaks of winter gray. Aurora's hands remained curled into fists, her nails pressing into her palms. None of this made sense. Why her? Why he had asked about her name years before the case even touched her desk. Why he had followed Elena across states only to surface now. It was obsession, yes, but there was more. Something personal she hadn't figured out yet. When they reached the precinct, Ryan parked in the side lot. Less exposed, fewer angles where someone could lurk. He got out first, scanning the area before motioning Aurora to follow. She stepped out, her senses heightened. Every sound felt sharper, every passing figure more suspicious. Inside, the precinct felt unusually still. Most officers were out on calls or finishing reports, leaving the halls quiet enough that Aurora could hear her heartbeat. She headed straight to the evidence room, Ryan close behind. They reviewed every detail again: Elena's notes, the sealed file, the surveillance footage, Mr. Caldwell's statement. Aurora laid everything out on the table, staring at the puzzle. Something was missing. Elena must have kept something hidden, something she didn't want anyone to find, not even us, Aurora said. Ryan nodded. If Marcus was tracking her, she might have tried to leave clues behind.
maybe something we haven't seen. Aurora's mind shifted back to Elena's apartment, the study, the hidden note, the smudged window. She remembered how carefully Elena had hidden that scrap of paper. She remembered the look of fear she had imagined on her face when writing it. "What if there's more in her apartment?" Aurora said, grabbing her coat again. Ryan didn't argue. "Let's go." They drove back through the darkening evening, the sky soaked in deep shades of blue. Snow threatened to fall, the air cold enough to sting their lungs as they walked toward the apartment complex. The building loomed silently, lights flickering in a few windows like tired eyes. Inside Elena's unit, Aurora moved with focus, checking every corner with fresh suspicion. Ryan scanned the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom. Aurora returned to the study. There was something about the room she couldn't let go of. Her flashlight moved across the desk, the shelves, the floor. She crouched, feeling along the underside of the desk. Nothing. She checked the back of the drawers. Nothing. Then she paused. The bookshelf. Something was off. A small gap behind a row of thick books. Aurora slowly pulled one out. A thin metal box lay hidden behind it, wedged tightly so it wouldn't rattle or fall. Her chest tightened. "Ryan," she called softly. He stepped in, eyes widening when he saw the box. Aurora set it carefully on the desk and opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of photographs of Elena in different cities, different outfits, different years. Some were taken from across the street, some from behind trees, some through windows. Every single one captured fear she never noticed, a hunter always behind her. Aurora's stomach dropped. Marcus had followed her for years. There were notes too, Elena's handwriting, frantic and uneven. "He won't stop. He knows where I live. He was outside last night. He's getting closer." Aurora swallowed hard and reached the last page. A final note. "He said your name, Aurora. He knows you." The room went silent. Ryan stared at her, disbelief twisting into horror. How would she know your name? Aurora didn't have an answer. She didn't even have a guess. It didn't make sense. She had never met Elena before this case. She had never crossed paths with her. Unless Marcus had told Elena about her, unless he had been planning something much larger. Ryan took a slow step back. "Aurora, is there something you're not telling me?" "No," she whispered. "I swear, I don't know him." "But he knows you." Aurora grabbed the edge of the desk, grounding herself. She looked at the photos again, studying the angles, the locations. One picture made her blood run cold. Elena standing on a sidewalk. Behind her, blurred in the distance, was a figure. Tall, dark jacket, watching. But Aurora wasn't staring at the man. She was staring at the background, at the building behind him. Her own apartment building. Aurora's breath shattered. Ryan froze when he saw her face. "What is it?" Aurora lifted the photo with trembling fingers and whispered, "He's been near my home." The door to Elena's apartment creaked suddenly. Both Aurora and Ryan spun around, drawing their guns. The hallway was empty, but Aurora knew one thing with terrifying certainty. Marcus Hale was closer than ever, and he was done hiding.
Aurora Hale stepped into the hallway with her gun raised, her breath sharp and controlled. Ryan moved beside her, scanning the shadows that stretched across the narrow corridor. The silence pressed heavy against the walls, broken only by the faint hum of the apartment's old heating system. Nothing moved. No door creaked. No whisper of footsteps lingered. But someone had been here. Someone bold enough to approach the apartment. Someone confident enough to slip away without a sound. Ryan leaned in close and murmured, "He's playing with us." Aurora knew he was right. Marcus wasn't trying to hide anymore. He wanted them to feel him, to sense him watching.
Fear was part of his plan, just another way to tighten control. She forced her grip steady, fighting the cold unease creeping up her spine. They cleared the hallway, swept the stairwell, and checked every emergency exit. All empty. Marcus had vanished into the building's quiet like smoke fading into air. Back inside Elena's apartment, Aurora shut the door and locked it, though she knew a lock meant nothing to someone like Marcus. Still, she needed a moment, just a breath, to think. Ryan set the metal box of photographs on the table again. The images stared back at them like ghosts, each one a piece of the terror Elena lived with. Aurora lifted the photo, showing her own apartment building in the background. Her hands trembled slightly despite her focus. "She was there," she whispered, "watching me before I even knew this case existed." Ryan exhaled slowly. This is calculated. He planned every step. Elena wasn't the only target. Aurora didn't reply. She felt something shifting inside her, a realization forming quietly, dangerously. The sense that Marcus's fixation wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was personal. She just didn't know how or why. Ryan studied her face and lowered his voice. "Aurora, if there's something connecting you to him—" "There isn't," she snapped, sharper than she intended. She took a long breath. "I don't know him. I've never met him." Ryan nodded, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Then he chose you for a reason." Aurora paced the room, her boots silent against the carpet. She studied Elena's desk, the shelves, the window, every spot where Elena might have hidden something else. She searched for patterns, anything Marcus might have left behind. Then her gaze landed on the edge of the desk drawer. A tiny scratch. Fresh. She pulled the drawer open. Inside, beneath notebooks and old receipts, something glinted under the flashlight beam. A small silver pendant. Aurora lifted it carefully. A necklace, simple and worn, with a tiny engraved initial on the back. The letter A. Her breath caught. "This isn't Elena's," she whispered. Ryan took a step closer. "You think he left it?" Aurora nodded slowly. "He left it for me." The room seemed to grow colder, tighter around her. A piece of her past she didn't recognize lay in her palm, a clue meant only for her. Her phone buzzed suddenly. She jumped. Ryan moved beside her quickly. "Is it him?" Aurora lifted the phone with a tightening chest. Another message from the unknown number. 3 words. "Did you like it?" Her pulse hammered in her ears. Marcus knew exactly where she was, exactly what she had touched, exactly how she would react. He was watching them even now. Ryan clenched his fists. "We need to move. He's too close." Aurora forced her breath steady. "We go to my apartment next. If he was there before, he might have left something else." Ryan nodded. "Let's go. And Aurora, stay close." They left Elena's apartment and moved quickly down the stairs, every echo of their footsteps amplified in the empty building. Outside, the night had deepened, the cold biting, the street lamps casting long, eerie shadows across the snow-dusted pavement. They got into Ryan's car. Aurora felt exposed, vulnerable, but she pushed the feeling down. She needed clarity, not fear. As they drove toward her apartment, Aurora replayed every detail of her life. Faces, old memories, childhood fragments, trying to place the name Marcus Hale. But nothing surfaced. No recognition, no forgotten encounter, no hidden past. Yet he knew her, and Elena's note said he had spoken her name. The thought echoed painfully through her mind. When they reached her building, Aurora stepped out and froze. The air felt wrong. Still. Too still. Like the world itself was waiting. Her windows were dark, the curtains slightly parted as if someone had peeked outside. Ryan scanned the area. "Let's check inside." Aurora unlocked the door to her apartment. The moment she stepped inside, she sensed it. Someone had been here. Her living room was untouched at first glance, but she noticed the smallest things: a picture frame slightly crooked, a book moved an inch out of place, a faint scent of cologne that didn't belong to her. Ryan noticed too. "Stay behind me." They moved through the apartment room by room. No one was there now, but the violation lingered in the air like a stain. Aurora entered her bedroom and froze. On her pillow lay a folded piece of paper. She approached slowly, dread coiling in her gut. Her fingers trembled as she opened the note. In neat, controlled handwriting were 5 chilling words: "You were never a stranger." Her blood turned cold. Ryan stepped beside her. "What does that mean?" Aurora stared at the words, her mind racing, her heart sinking deeper into a fear she hadn't felt in years. "I don't know," she whispered, "but he does." She lifted her eyes to the quiet room, to the shadows Marcus had stood in, to the bed he was inches from. And she realized something with terrifying clarity. Marcus Hale didn't just choose her. He remembered her, even if she didn't remember him.
The morning after the trial felt strangely quiet. Not a peaceful quiet, more like the stillness that hangs in the air right before a lightning storm. The town moved cautiously, speaking in low voices, watching the shadows as if they expected someone else to be torn from them next. And in the center of that uneasy calm stood him, the boy who survived the fog, the boy who exposed a killer, the boy who wasn't supposed to exist. You. People stared when you walked by, some with awe, some with fear, some with the desperate gratitude of someone who knows they're alive because of you. You tried to ignore the whispers, but they followed you everywhere. He's different. He looked into the fog and lived. What else can he do? You didn't know the answer yourself. The fog had changed you. It had left something behind. The power beneath your skin. That morning, as you washed your face in the cold water, you felt it again. A faint hum, like electricity gathering under your ribs. When you touched the edge of the mirror, the glass trembled. Not enough to shatter, just enough to confirm what you already suspected. Not in a dramatic, glowing lights comic book way. It was subtle, real, dangerous. A warmth at your fingertips, a shiver through the air when you were startled. A strange clarity in your thoughts, as if instincts were sharpening into something more primal. You exhaled. The mirror stilled. Whatever was waking inside you, it wasn't done yet. You had barely stepped into the kitchen when there was a heavy knock at the door. Your guardian answered, voice tense, but the sheriff didn't wait to be invited in. He pushed through the doorway like a man on the edge of breaking. He looked older than he had yesterday, like the trial had carved new lines into him. "We need to talk," he said, eyes locking onto yours. Your guardian stepped forward protectively, but the sheriff didn't look away from you. His jaw tightened. "It's happening again." The words chilled the room. You sat down slowly. "What do you mean?" The sheriff swallowed hard. "The fog formed early this morning, hours before the usual shift, and someone's already missing." Your pulse quickened. "Who?" "Thomas Caro." "Thomas, the one who mocked you for being different, the one who pushed smaller kids, the one who had stood in the back row during the trial wearing a smirk. Missing." His parents said they heard him screaming, but by the time they reached his room, it was empty. He didn't climb out a window, didn't open a door. It was like he was pulled out. Your guardian sat down heavily. "Please tell me you're not thinking that he had anything to do with this again. The trial is over." "Oh, I don't think the boy did anything wrong," the sheriff said. He pointed at you. "I think the fog did, and it wants him back." A silence fell, thick and suffocating. Your voice came out low. "What makes you think that?" "Because," the sheriff said, leaning in,
Thomas carved something on the floor before he disappeared. We checked his room. He pulled a folded photo from his pocket and slid it across the table. It was the same symbol you had seen in the fog, the same one that had burned in your nightmares, the same one that pulsed inside you when your powers stirred. A circle, a spiral, a shape that wasn't human in origin. "What does it mean?" your guardian whispered. The sheriff shook his head. I was hoping he could tell me. You stared at the symbol, and it stared back. That night, sleep refused to claim you. You tossed, turned, tried to force your mind quiet, but the symbol burned behind your eyelids. When you finally drifted into an uneasy half-dream, you felt it again. A presence, cold, ancient, watching. The fog outside your window pressed against the glass like a living thing, swirling, curling, forming letters that vanished as quickly as they appeared. But you saw it. Your chest tightened, your palms tingled with that strange energy. The fog wasn't done with you. It wasn't finished. It had given you power, and it wanted something in return. A promise? A debt? A tether? You swung your legs off the bed, feet hitting the cold floor. You understood now. Thomas wasn't taken at random. He wasn't taken by the sheriff's brother. He was taken by the same force that had chosen you. And if you didn't act, more would disappear. You whispered into the darkness, "I'm coming." Outside, the fog pulsed once, as if acknowledging you, accepting you, calling you deeper.
Aurora Hale stood at the edge of the forest, the fog curling and twisting around her like a living, breathing entity. Every nerve in her body was alert, every sense sharpened to the point of pain. The pendant Marcus Hale had left in Elena's apartment burned faintly against her chest, a reminder that the man who had haunted them was now gone. But the shadow he left behind lingered, thick and heavy. Ryan Mitchell was beside her, silent, scanning the tree line. Together, they had followed the faint clues Marcus had inadvertently left behind: black SUV tracks, footprints in the snow, and now the fog itself, a strange guide leading them to its source. It was as if the fog wanted them to confront what had begun all those months ago, to face the danger and close the circle. Aurora exhaled slowly, letting the cold air fill her lungs. "This is it," she whispered, "where it all ends." Ryan didn't respond. He only nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. Every step into the mist was a step closer to the truth, and the truth had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for them to gather the courage to see it. The fog thickened as they advanced, swallowing the forest around them. Shadows seemed to shift, distant whispers brushing against the edges of their perception. Aurora's heart pounded, not with fear, but with the clarity of purpose. Every step she had taken since discovering Marcus Hale's obsession, every clue, every message, every horrifying revelation had led to this moment. And then she saw it, a figure, tall and unmistakable, standing in the center of a clearing where the fog swirled like silver smoke. Marcus Hale. He turned slowly, expression calm but cold, eyes calculating. "I wondered when you would arrive," he said, voice low, but carrying clearly through the mist. Aurora tightened her grip on the pendant. "It's over, Marcus. No more games." He smiled faintly. "Games? No, this has always been destiny." Ryan stepped forward. "Destiny doesn't justify murder. You terrorized an entire town, Marcus. It ends now." Marcus's gaze flicked to Ryan, then back to Aurora. He raised his hand and the fog thickened, swirling violently, as if responding to his will. But Aurora felt the hum again, the energy inside her. The
the power the fog had awakened in her. She breathed deeply, letting it flow through her, steady and strong. "You're not controlling anything," she said, voice firm. "Not me, not this town." The fog hesitated, rippling around Marcus as if listening. Aurora stepped closer, every ounce of fear replaced with resolution. The pendant glowed faintly, pulsing with energy that resonated with the fog. She reached out and the fog parted, pushing Marcus back gently but firmly, as if acknowledging her command. Marcus's expression faltered, the first crack in his composed demeanor. What is this?" "You chose fear," Aurora said, her voice growing stronger. "I choose control, not by force, but by knowing the truth. You've lost." The fog surged, lifting Marcus slightly off the ground, as if it had decided he no longer belonged. He struggled, but Aurora's energy held firm. Slowly, silently, the mist carried him away, dissolving him into nothingness. A final whisper of his voice echoed in the clearing. "This isn't over." But it was. Aurora exhaled, the weight of months of fear and tension finally lifting. The clearing was empty, silent except for the gentle rustle of the trees and the retreating fog. Ryan lowered his eyes, letting out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Is it really over?" he asked, softly. Aurora nodded. "For now. The town is safe. Elena can finally have peace, and so can we." They turned back toward Evergreen Hills. The morning light was breaking through the clouds, illuminating the snow-dusted streets. Life was beginning to return, quietly, cautiously, but undeniably. Families stepped outside, neighbors spoke again, and the town slowly breathed after months of fear. Aurora looked at Ryan, a small smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We faced the shadows," she said. "We didn't let them win. And now—" Ryan glanced at her, understanding the depth of her words. "Now it's done." Aurora nodded, feeling the last traces of fear dissolve. She had learned the truth about Marcus Hale, about the fog, and about the hidden power she carried. But more importantly, she had learned the power of courage, resolution, and truth. The pendant's glow faded, leaving only warmth in her hand. The town behind them was safe. The threats were gone, the mysteries resolved. And in that moment, the chill of the morning felt less sharp, replaced with the quiet promise of a life reclaimed. Aurora stepped forward, the snow crunching beneath her boots. Ryan followed. The fog had receded, leaving the world clear, bright, and calm. For the first time in months, they both felt it, the unmistakable sense that darkness, no matter how relentless, could be faced and eventually overcome. Evergreen Hills would remember the terror it had endured, but it would also remember those who faced it. And Aurora Hale, who had looked into the darkness and emerged unbroken, would never forget either. The sun broke fully over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the town. The snow sparkled, the streets were alive again, and the air carried a sense of peace, hard-earned and deserved. And just like that, the story of fear, obsession, and shadows came to its close.